So what do we learn about 14 Swamp Black in Pauper? And the deck is maddeningly inconsistent. As we saw in that game, when things go well, it is very powerful. If we have 6 1-drops on the battlefield on turn 1, that beats a lot of decks, and it's very strong. Unfortunately, being 14 lands, we had a ton of issues with either drawing too many lands, rarely, but often drawing too few, like mulliganing to 5 because we just go 0 land, 0 land, 0 land. And we also had a lot of games where if we had 2 lands, we would have won. And since we only had 1 land, we were stuck just playing a single 1-drop each turn, and that's not going to do it. So the deck, when everything comes together, it's very powerful, but things don't come together all that often, at least in this league. So I don't know, maybe it's more consistent than it felt. This is obviously a small sample size, so you can't really say, oh, that's how it plays out. But with 14 lands, we're going to get 1-land hands a lot, and we got to expect to be able to keep 1-land hands. And from my experience with this league and playing a couple other matches, really what it comes down to is if the deck draws first off, if the deck draws a Dark Ritual in its opening hand, it's heavily favored to win. You get 3 1-drops on turn 1, and it's really hard for a Pauper deck to come back from that. So that's lesson 1. So we want that, but we only got 4 Dark Rituals. It doesn't happen that often. Lesson 2 is if we end the game, if we have 2 lands on turn 2 and end the game with no more than 3 lands, we're heavily favored to win. So we really want a 2-land opener, or in the worst case, a 1-land opener and then peel a land on turn 2. So that's what we really need, but we also need to not go above 3 lands. Once we get up to like 5 lands, we just don't have enough action because our cards aren't that high impact. So we really need to swarm our opponent and make up for the fact that our cards aren't as powerful as our opponent's cards by having more action. And that's kind of the idea of the deck, with skimping on lands to such an extreme extent. Even though our cards are worse than our opponent's cards, if we can have 2 or 3 or 4 more real cards instead of lands over the course of a game, that we make up for that power differential and can still win the game. So Dark Ritual in our opener, we likely win. Having 2 lands on turn 2, but not going above 3 lands for the game, we likely win. Where things go wrong is where we have a 1-lander, and we have to keep it. There's no way we can mull 1-landers and play 14 lands. If we're gonna mull 1-landers, we don't play 14 lands. It doesn't work. We're signing up for that when we play a 14-land deck. So we have to keep 1-landers, and we have times where we keep 1-landers and it's turn 5 and we're still on 1 land, and we just spent every turn playing a single 1-drop, while our opponent's making their land drops and playing 2-drops and 3-drops and 4-drops and so forth. We don't win those games. It's very hard to win. Or if we just draw a whole bunch of lands, then we also aren't likely to win. It's powerful, and it can definitely steal some games and win quickly, but the very way it's built is inconsistent. So I can definitely see how the original deck builder went 5-0 in a league. If you had those conditions met 5 games in a row, which is going to happen sometimes, like the way the deck is built with 14 lands, it's trying to meet those conditions. Have a Dark Ritual, have between 2 or 3 lands, and the deck performs really well there. So over a small sample size, I think you can have that happen, but to consistently 5-0, it seems unlikely, because you're going to have games where it just doesn't work out because the deck is playing such a risky mana base and cheating on lands to such a great extent. Give it a shot, see what you think for yourself. It's cheap enough that you're not risking much by trying it. Anyway, that's been our Much Abrew About Nothing for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and I will talk to you soon.